Ole Miss has a playoff roster in 2026, but it all comes down to two men that nobody's talking about enough.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everydayers? I'm Stephen Willis. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we're driven by the details. Highlights make the real, but the work behind them, that is what makes them count. Stay tuned for this week's Moving the Game Forward. The all-new Mazda CX-5. Move to every move, every side of you. Today, the hard truth about what it takes for this Ole Miss team to win a national championship, and it actually runs through two defensive transfers who have to be elite. I'm naming names and making the case. Then Trinidad Chambliss is in the building, and he is built different, and, well, he knows it. The film, the body, the mindset, the man. This man is Heisman or bust, and I'll tell you why that is not hyperbole. And finally, first-year offensive coordinator at Ole Miss, John David Baker, is calling plays for Ole Miss in 2026. What should we actually expect when he meets the media a little bit later on today? We're breaking all of that down. Pete Golding said it itself. This is the most depth that Ole Miss has had since he has been at Ole Miss, but depth does not win titles. Pass rush wins titles. And right now, Blake Purchase and Jonathan Maldonado are the two most important Rebels on this roster that nobody's treating like the, well, two most important Rebels on this roster. Today, we fix that. Ole Miss won't win a title without Purchase and Maldonado being elite. And that is a very, very real statement of something that you have to look at. The path to a title runs through the pass rush, period. Not the offense. And Purchase and Maldonado are the two most important Rebels that nobody is treating like the two most important Rebels. And if those two are elite, Ole Miss is a title team. If not, they are a very good team that likely when it'll fold when it matters most. So stay with me. This is the part where it gets really interesting. Maldonado posted an 85.8 pass rush grade and a 79.5 overall defensive grade on PFF, placing him among the top three on the current Ole Miss roster, by the way. Brian Brown said he actually paused the film a little bit early in spring because it looked like the tackle could not even get his hands on Maldonado. He's so long. He called him long, explosive, and elite. And Blake Purchase is a 6'3", 245-pound former four-star, former top 100 player in the country who played under Dan Lanning at Oregon in one of the most sophisticated defensive systems in the entire country. Brian Brown went on to say that Purchase is heavy-handed. He's a twitchy player, plays the five technique really well, and does a great job against tight ends. That's a checklist for exactly what you need on the SEC edge, by the way. And here's what no one else is going to tell you about this situation. William Eccles already ranked first among all Power 4 defensive tackles with 39 quarterback pressures last season. That means Purchase and Maldonado are going to get one-on-one looks all day long. The defensive line depth cost Ole Miss in the Fiesta Bowl against the Miami Hurricanes. Golding knows that. Everybody knows that. We've talked about that on this show multiple times over the last couple of months. But he fixed it. And now the conditions are perfect for a breakout from both of those transfers. You know, after a week of spring drills, Golding said that he went after edge rushers and he might have appeared to hit the mark exactly on this. Those are the head coach's words after seeing them in practice as well. Every championship team has that edge presence. You look at what Indiana did. They could get after you on the outside. What Michigan did, they could get after you on the outside. Ohio State could get after you on the outside. The best Georgia and Alabama teams could get after you on the outside. Purchase and Maldonado have to be that for Ole Miss this year. If you plan on making a run at all, those edge players not only have to be good, they have to be elite. Now, I need you to hear this part, okay? Maldonado played quarterback in high school. Now, he also played defensive end, but he played quarterback. That shows you the range and a skill set for the young player that wasn't extremely highly rated, it being the fact that he went to the Nevada Wolfpack as well. So his ceiling is genuinely unknown to everybody. We assume that Jonathan Maldonado can be a really elite player and a really good player, but he might even be more than that. And I compare him a little bit to Marcus Davenport. He is somebody that Pete Golding in that defensive system made an elite player. He is somebody that wasn't overly heavy recruited. He went to UTSA. Jonathan Maldonado went to the Nevada Wolfpack. But they had the ingredients. They had the size-speed ratio. And with Will Eccles and with Jam Brown and Jaheim Otis and Mekhi Burrow, you're going to get single teams over the course of the game. It's one-on-one. It's a simple thing. So length gets to quarterback. Length makes this defense go, and both of these players are extremely long. The ingredients are there for something special for Maldonado and Purchase. Now, that's elite from Blake Purchase and Jonathan Maldonado. And an elite version of those two is one of the best defensive lines in the entire SEC for Ole Miss and a legitimate title run. Anything less, you're going to have a really good Ole Miss team, but it's going to be a team that falls short when the likes go on. So listen, you heard it here first because this is Locked On Ole Miss. We're not going to throw takes out willy-nilly. We do takes that are true. And our history over the last couple of years, especially when it comes to football, sees that out, okay? Blake Purchase and Jonathan Maldonado have a chance to be the missing ingredient that Ole Miss did not have a year ago. The reason that the Miami Hurricanes were able to take down the Ole Miss Rebels and wear them down is because Ole Miss could not get to the quarterback and Ole Miss could not play man coverage. And Pete Golding on Tuesday talked about he recruited players so they can play man coverage. Because when you have trouble stopping the run against zone, which has happened this year and it happened in 2023, because Pete Golding honestly was forced to go into the transfer portal with substandard rosters from time to time because everything was going to the other side of the ball. Whenever that happens, that puts your defense at a disadvantage because if you have trouble stopping the run, you can't play man and get exotic on the fronts to stop the run. You are at a massive disadvantage of what could happen. Pete Golding fixed things in the transfer portal with players on the back end, but they also fixed it getting after the quarterback. When you're getting long yardage situations, Blake Purchase, Jonathan Maldonado, those guys, extremely strong on the ball. They have real strong hands as well. They hit you hard. This is a chance for this Ole Miss football team to be really good. I don't know exactly why nobody's talking about these two positions. They might ask questions from time to time in press conferences, but they're not asking questions about what is actually going on there. I'm really curious to see exactly how that goes because both of these have a chance to be really elite. Blake Purchase at Oregon, the reason he's at Ole Miss is because Oregon has two elite defensive ends that Blake Purchase was backing up both of them. We talked to Spencer McLaughlin from Locked On Ducks the other day, and he was talking about how high he was on Blake Purchase. And if either of those ends would have gone pro, like players used to do previously before you could make money in college, Blake Purchase would have been the starter, bar none. The defense by Dan Lanning is similar. There's not going to be much of a transition for Blake Purchase. So when you add him and Jonathan Maldonado, they're two different types of players, two really good skill sets and a chance to make you very, very good. If one's not working, the other likely will. There's a chance both of these guys are going to be high-quality jacks for the Ole Miss defense. Really interesting stuff. Everydayers, can Purchase and Maldonado both be elite in year one in Oxford? Is that too much to ask? Drop that in the questions below. Thanks for watching the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Quick break. When we come back, Trinidad Chambliss looks different this spring. Built different, talking different, and he kind of resembles a man that knows exactly what he is capable of. So don't go anywhere. This is Moving the Game Forward by Mazda. For those who know, the score never tells the whole story. Today, we're talking about Trinidad Chambliss, the subject of our next segment. The story of college football this year and the man that had to fight just to play the game he loves. You know he is having a good time being in those practice fields because, like just about everything else, Trinidad Chambliss wins. There's more to these players than the highlights, the early mornings, the late night runs, constantly showing up for their squad on and off the field. The all-new Mazda CX-5 moves the same way. With more space to connect, a bold new design, and a more intuitive technology so you can stay connected to the road at all times. And every position you play, the all-new Mazda CX-5. Move more to move every side of you. And it's tax time, but for a lot of us, it's the old way of doing taxes. Well, that's kind of a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in the waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth, wondering if they really get your situation at all. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents can get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every single dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go upon your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are going to be handled right. So head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it keeps all of this free. And get Locked On Ole Miss ad-free with Everydayer Club access and benefits, plus members-only Discord access. Join at lockedonolemess.supercast.com. Today, you will not regret it. So one thing that's interesting, Trinidad Chambliss looks sharper than ever, and more importantly, it looks like he knows it. And I am really interested to see what this version of Trinidad Chambliss looks like. If you don't know the story, which you likely all do, but we're going to go over it. Chambliss went from D2 to the SEC starter to the college football semifinal to fighting with the NCAA in court, which he won, by the way. And this version walking into spring practice is not the same guy from last June that walked into the Ole Miss football program. This version is dangerous because this version is supremely confident. So don't touch the dial. The best part's going to be coming up. Chambliss threw for 3,927 yards with 22 touchdowns while adding 522 rushing yards and 8 scores on the ground in 2025. Pretty good numbers, right? That was good enough for a top 10 finish in the Heisman Trophy voting. And Chambliss said he didn't get spring ball last year. He was kind of thrown into summer with the season right there. And that full spring to build timing with receivers and take control of the offense is absolutely huge. Last year for Ole Miss, they ran a retrofitted Austin Simmons offense with Trinidad Chambliss and kind of figured it out as it went along. And Ole Miss still managed to score 30 points a game. Imagine what you can deal with whenever the offense is built with Trinidad in mind. It isn't what Austin Simmons did well. It's what Trinidad Chambliss does well. And to add to it, Trinidad Chambliss has added a little bit of muscle in the offseason as well. A lot of that probably had to do with spending part-time getting ready just in case for the NFL draft, but it's a situation that he had a lot of confidence in that he was going to do it. The genuine transformation heading into spring camp, and Pete Golding said this about his quarterback. His maturity is off the charts. His ability to focus are where his feet are. He has been awesome, and he has been. And this is the piece that changes everything. Ole Miss opened up spring practice on the same day that the Mississippi Supreme Court denied the NCAA's appeal opportunity, clearing Chambliss for a return for another season, the finality of everything, the exhale. That first day where Trinidad Chambliss was able to put his cleats in the ground with all of this ending cannot be overstated. Chambliss said his confidence never wavered, by the way, about this whole situation. He assumed he was going to be the Ole Miss starting quarterback in 2026. His case was valid. It was the truth, and his confidence stayed high throughout the entire fight of what's going on. Everydayers already know this, but let me say it out loud for everyone else to hear. That mentality is what separates great quarterbacks from good ones. Chambliss said he is focused on improving ball accuracy and processing coverages quicker for the NFL. He wants to get to the NFL and stick, because here's the key. And most players rush to go to the NFL. This is the reason that Trinidad Chambliss decided to come back. He wanted to make sure that when he landed in the NFL, when the decisions and everything was permanent, it was the last thing, he was completely ready to go. So he's working with Joe Judge, the former NFL Giants head coach and his current quarterback coach, on his processing, on his decision-making, everything that could make a quarterback better at the NFL level and have a chance to get that second contract. There's been so many quarterbacks that have been compared to other great quarterbacks in the NFL that just haven't stuck. They might have the talent to get there, but they didn't give them the best opportunity to stick. Trinidad Chambliss is using the coaches at Ole Miss to make that happen. And Joe Judge is one of those guys, he called his favorite coaches of all time in college football, that gives him the best opportunity to stick in the NFL. And Greg McElroy from ESPN has called Ole Miss one of the most fascinating programs in college football, and Chambliss as a legitimate Heisman Trophy contender. I don't disagree with a single word of that. Ole Miss is currently, 21-1 to win the national title, and Chambliss right now is the third betting favorite according to FanDuel. It's going to be really interesting exactly how this goes. When you look at what Trinidad Chambliss brings to the table, we haven't really sat down and talked about this. He's been compared to Baker Mayfield, who Baker Mayfield was voted recently, I think, by ESPN to be either the number one or the number two quarterback that is quarterbacked in college football in the 2000s. I personally think it's Cam Newton, but Baker Mayfield was voted at that level. Trinidad Chambliss gets those comparisons all the time. And it's because of the intangibles of what he can do. He has the it factor. You saw that in the game. When plays had to be made, they got made. That's the reason the fourth quarter against Georgia a year ago in Athens surprised you, because he got rattled. For the first time in his D1 college career, he got rattled. But you know what happened? When that same situation presented itself in the Sugar Bowl, in the fourth quarter where he had to make plays, he simply made the three greatest passes in a row, three greatest plays that we have seen from Ole Miss in the modern era. And that was the scramble play for a first down with Kewan Lacey. That was him running around and making plays downfield. And there was the pass to Trey Wallace down there that ended up in a touchdown. At that point, you knew that Ole Miss was going to win the game. You thought that Ole Miss was the better team going into that game. That was the point where you knew that they weren't losing to the Georgia Bulldogs that day. Trinidad Chambliss has the ability to take over the game against every team he is playing against at any given moment. And with the weapons that he has on the outside at running back, because he's going to be standing next to the best running back in all of college football next year. And then you have Johntay Cook, Darrell Gill, Caleb Cunningham, Horatio Fields, Deuce Alexander. At tight end, you have Luke Haas. You have Michael Smith. You have the transfers coming in like Brady Priestcorn. You have Caden Bradley, guys that could take a step. That is the great part about this team. There hasn't been a lot of players that have left. This offense has a chance to be really good because the depth and everything is in position for them to be really good, and they're led by a generational quarterback. You thought Jackson Dart was a generational quarterback. Heck, I thought Jackson Dart was a generational quarterback. Trinidad Chambliss is better. He might not be NFL better, but he's better for Ole Miss. He's better than Matt Corral for Ole Miss. And that is what is coming back, and that is something that he knows. Everydayers, is Chambliss the Heisman frontrunner for 2026? Drop your take. And if you're new here, welcome. You're already now one of the more informed than 90% of college football fans. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube, and a special hello to our everydayers who make this show what it is, your team every day. John David Baker is back in Oxford. He helped build some of the most explosive Ole Miss offenses there in program history. Now he's calling all the shots as the full OC in 2026. What should everydayers actually expect? I've got the answer, and it's coming up next. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inboxes overflowing, and the one position you still have to fill, well, that's sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need to make the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's the stat that says it all. The minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates that check all of your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. That'd be really great, right? Less stress, less time, more results. So when you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners to this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and show your support for our show by saying you heard about Indeed in this podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. All right. What can we expect from John David Baker in 2026? He is slated to meet the media today. What do we expect from that press conference as well? What do we want to see from John David Baker? Now, first thing you need to know about Baker is he's 35 years old, and he spent the last 2 years as the offensive coordinator at East Carolina. This was a team that was around 130th nationally when he took the reins. When he left, it was a top 15, top 20 type offense that he brought from Ole Miss. He runs essentially the same system. Now he's jumping directly into the SEC with a team with national title expectations. These are real pressure cooker differences that we're going to address, and we're going to address them honestly. So stay with me. This is kind of where it gets interesting. John David Baker was the offensive coordinator at Ole Miss, co-offensive coordinator from 2021 to 2023. He did pass game coordination. He was also the tight ends coach, and he helped Charlie Weiss build some of the best offenses in Ole Miss history, including top 5 offenses, including a 2022 rushing attack that broke the school record with over 3,300 yards. This isn't an outside hire learning a new system. This is a man returning to a system that he helped build, if we're going to be completely honest. The honest concern that people have with John David Baker is he only has 2 years experience as the full OC, and he's now jumping into the deep end against SEC level talent and coaches that live in that 24/7 pressure cooker. He's a young guy. He's a talented guy. He does a lot of stuff that you're going to see that is familiar when he starts calling plays in the fall, but it still is going from East Carolina to being the full source of the offense at Ole Miss in 2026. Now you have Joe Judge, you have Frank Wilson, you have John Garrison, you have a lot of pieces that are going to be in place that have ideas if you're willing to listen to them. Ole Miss fans, though, they're going to be vocal the moment this offense stalls against LSU or Georgia or Florida or Auburn. And whenever that happens, they're going to do that. You heard that with Charlie Weiss Jr. during those 5 years. That we also often had the conversation on this podcast to where we're saying Charlie Weiss Jr. calls the plays. It's not a situation where Lane Kiffin calls everything good and Charlie Weiss calls everything bad. It's Charlie Weiss Jr. doing both. And we had that conversation with a segment of the fan base that was always constantly wanting to fire Charlie Weiss Jr. Everydayers already know this, but let me say it loud for everybody else. Baker said himself, in his own words, I'm confident the continuity of the system will let our guys play fast from day one, and we're going to push this unit forward as one of the most exciting, explosive offenses in the entire country. That's his words. His return is going to add continuity and stability while avoiding some of the growing pains associated with an outside hire. Ask Zach Arnett about that. Transitioning from the air raid into a running-based system, there was a major system change. Zach Arnett didn't last 11 games. He already knows this system. He already knows this locker room. He coached in the college football playoff against Miami. He already knows the scheme, and he already knows the recruiting climate if we're going to be honest about what's going on. Chambliss called Joe Judge one of his most favorite coaches and somebody that has taught him a lot about football and about the NFL game in the nation today. When your quarterback trusts his quarterback coach, that's great. That level, good things are made to happen. John David Baker has to use that to make Trinidad more elite, making this a low ceiling, low risk hire. I'm buying John David Baker in 2026. But for those early SEC games, they will tell us exactly what we can expect from John David Baker moving forward. Listen, everydayers, do you trust the Baker hire to run this offense in 2026? Drop it in the comments down below. Let me know what's going on. And now, as always, tell me whatever's on your mind comment-wise and what you're seeing, because the everydayers attached to this show are usually ahead of the national media on this type of stuff. You're not the smartest offense about ball for no reason. Thanks for tuning in today to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. And before we get out of here, coming up tomorrow, we're going to talk about the Florida football scout, what he's saying about the rising tide of Ole Miss recruiting. Stay tuned for that. It's a big conversation, and you do not want to miss it. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and we're going to tell you exactly what is going on around Ole Miss every single day. We're on all of the social channels around Ole Miss, so check that out as well. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Show is built for you. Get Locked On Ole Miss ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and more. Head to lockedonolemmiss.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we're going to send you to the first ever national 24/7 Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your second listen, Locked On College Football or Locked On SEC. Subscribe, hit the bell, drop a comment. We will see you tomorrow, everydayers. Hotty toddy. Oh, and remember, the Oxford tour is a little over a week away. We will be at the Velvet Ditch on April 20th at 7 p.m. Come check us out there. We should have a great time and more times with the tour stop as they come available. We will talk to you later. Hotty toddy, everybody.